Hello, welcome to Beginner Breakdowns. I'm your radiant host Seth Series, here trying to hold things down in Kiz's absence. So we're gonna be kind of covering some replays tonight. AE is out. Sadly, a lot of the replays I have are from vanilla Street Fighter V. But fret not, we're going to go ahead and still kind of talk about, tonight's going to be focused more on more of a focused experience. We're going to talk kind of about footsies. We're going to talk about just general bad habits. So we're going to cover a lot of stuff. First things first, I've got a Ryu versus Bison match sent in from our good friend Cloven. We're going to go ahead and get started and check this out. I'm going to kill the sound, knock the sound down a little bit here. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So let's take a look. So first thing we see here is we're seeing some good Hadouken pressure. What we saw there, it looks like he started his, dash Inferno, but, we saw that whiff DP, and that was a bit of a missed opportunity. So we're kind of looking here. We're seeing some really good pressure strings from this Ryu player. We're seeing a lot of space. This is one thing I want to highlight. We're going to go back here. So I want you to kind of take a look. See this standing medium kick that Ryu does? Like, that button basically just exists to cover space. Ryu can V-trigger cancel out of it, but, like, it exists just basically to say, no, you're not moving. You're going to stay put. Like, don't move. So we're going to go back in. So we're seeing a lot of pressure. We're seeing a lot of jump-ins because we're not seeing a whole lot of anti-airs. This Bison, Cloven here isn't really in good angles to anti-air with Bison's crouching heavy punch. So we're seeing a lot of safe pressure. We're seeing a lot of Bison strings, like just kind of a lot of we've seen Cloven get in and try to start a lot. We've seen a lot of dashes. And now the corner pressure's been reversed. So let's go back here. So what we're seeing, we're seeing big strings, we're seeing pressure, we're seeing space control. Cloven is trying really hard not to give up the corner control, because that's where Bison excels. Like, he wants to get in your face and just tear you up. So it was a good round. Like, we had a couple little missed mistakes that could have closed that up a little bit, but So it was another thing we see. We start off with the EX Devil's Reverse. We see another whiff DP that just wasn't capitalized on. So we're going ahead and we're seeing more pressure strings. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna shut up for a second and kind of watch this and just watch how this plays out. So let's kind of go back here. So we saw the start of a Devil's Reverse. Just like right here, he starts to poke, then starts to jump, then Devil's Reverse, and we just don't really see anything. There's no commitment. Looks like he was just trying to close in a little bit, even though he was already in. So this is kind of where things get a little bit sketchy. So let's go back here. Now reading, here's our Devil's Reverse. It doesn't work. Gets thrown. Kind of loses the range. Goes for the EX Devil's Reverse. Starts the pressure strings back up. You can tell he's kind of panicking just a little bit to get in, especially if he's losing the life lead. So we're seeing there, we saw the EX Devil's Reverse. It's not really the best punishment for that Hadouken. So one thing we can see, especially because there is a little bit of a skill disparity between the two opponents. Like, we're seeing a lot of, the big thing we're seeing from this Ryu is space control. So, pause. I talked a minute ago about just kind of, checking with that stand medium kick. Like, a lot of the things that we're seeing for this are just general space control and pressure. This Ryu is playing very simple. He's getting in. He's doing his damage. He's pressuring. So let's go back and let's kind of keep watching and see how the rest of this set plays out. So one thing that's kind of important here and that we see, like, especially kind of at the beginning, like, we're seeing a lot of fireballs for space control. We see the start of scissors, we see that, and get stuffed. But, like, especially right here, these two, the two Bison V skills we saw, that's a good way to kind of establish the fact that, hey, you can throw fireballs, but I'm going to shut them down and I'm going to throw them right back at you. So because of that, and because we see Cloven close the distance, like, we immediately see kind of the Ryu resort to jumping light kick into some of his strings. So there we saw another, so, like, right back here, we're going to see another, panic sweep. This is, like, right here, and panic sweep. And that time he got lit up for it. So, like, we're definitely, one thing we've noticed Cloven doing is we see kind of panic sweeps when he wants to get in, when he's trying to close that distance. So, this is kind of the first set in that, and, like, one thing I want to talk to you all about, especially during this part, is, like, we're seeing kind of, especially with the skill disparity between these two players, we're seeing a lot of spatial control, we're seeing Bison pressure strings, we're seeing him get in. But one thing we're seeing Cloven start rounds really quickly, but just kind of fall within the rest of the set. So, like, one thing you definitely got to understand is, like, match fatigue is important, especially, like, your mental state when you play is another important factor. You've got to understand, you've got to be willing to cover bases, you got to be willing to kind of just play the match out. Like, you can't just sit there and burn yourself out and then just kind of fall back on autopilot and a bunch of other, just kind of classic habits that we see. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to see how the rest of this set plays out. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
Round one. Fight.
So we're seeing it again. We're seeing the spatial control from this Ryu player. We saw Cloven get checked with that crouch, or with that standing medium kick again. Alright. So one thing we saw there, we kind of saw the anti-air get stuffed. So let's go ahead and keep looking here. So one thing I'm really liking what I see here, and, like, I want to go back and highlight this because this is, we want to talk about things you're doing right along with things that can use some work. So when Cloven gets in and when Cloven's able to actually kind of start the Bison pressure, like, we really see him excel. Like, right here, we're seeing him, we're seeing safe pressure strings, we're seeing him stay in. We saw him kind of lose the ground a little bit due to a V reversal, but we're still seeing some really strong pressure, which is what Bison excels at. Definitely one thing, the thing I've kind of picked up, especially when watching Cloven play, is, like, he's very eager to get in. He wants to get in, he wants to start these strings and do damage. So, one of the big things, there it is. Let's go back. So, what have we seen every single match when Cloven is wanting to get in? Like, every single time we are seeing him kind of bulldog his way in. So, we just watched, I was going to say, Cloven pulled that one out, but, like, less than 20 seconds, he was at half his life bar. I skipped a little bit far ahead there. Okay. Alright, so let's kind of go back in. So, like, one thing I can definitely see this Ryu player not doing is, like, these dashes just go unchecked. Like, Cloven has gotten in 9 out of 10 times on these dashes. So now what we're seeing is we're just seeing really good corner, like, just control from Ryu. Like, we're not seeing any throw breaks, we're not seeing any counters, we're just seeing these two play each other. So, I really kind of feel like this set, like, it went by pretty quick. I want to go back and just kind of show some of this. So, Cloven got put in a corner and just mauled. Like, this Ryu controlled the space, he played the game that he wants to play. Cloven is so kind of desperate to get in that he just gets overwhelmed and he just gets picked apart. And that's a really important thing that, like, a lot of players need to understand, like, especially about the corner, is like, when you're in the corner, you're going to be playing a lot of defense. You're going to be waiting for, like, you're actively waiting for the person to make a mistake, or you're waiting to V-reversal someone, which is why, especially after you pop your V-trigger, being in the corner is terrifying, because you don't have that get-off-me tool. So we've gone ahead and started here. Cloven's taken an early lead. We're seeing some pressure attempts here. Good EX Devil's Reverse to cover that Hadouken. So there it is. Like, every single time that Cloven has kind of tried to close the gap, he has done that sweep, and it has got him lit up every single time. And so right now, we're seeing him try to stay in. We're seeing him try to keep the pressure going, because right now, he could take this. Like, and at this point, we're getting predictable. Like, we've seen these dash-in throws. We've seen just a lot of dash-ins. And there it is. He finally got punished for it. So, I want to go back and, like, just kind of, at the end of the scramble here, like, I want to count the dash-ins. So, we see the crush counter, kind of not max damage, because that could have definitely killed. So, let's see here. Pressure string, V-trigger pop. Devil's Reverse attempt. Jump. 1, 2. Closes it. Spread some distance out. Devil's Reverse. Dash in. At this point, he's already seen 2 of them. Why is he afraid of them? Alright. So, there's one more part of this. I'm going to go ahead and cut that short, and I just kind of want to talk about that. So, like, patience is probably the biggest killer in this match. We watched a good chunk, as I say, we saw Cloven throw away multiple life leads because he wanted to get in. We saw YOLO sweeps where he got lit up. Ryu, especially for Season 2, Ryu's big thing was that he still hit like a truck. Like, Ryu hits hard in all of his incarnations, and his damage in Street Fighter V is probably some of the highest, especially in a high damage game like Street Fighter V. So, we saw in that last match, within the span of 20 seconds, we saw 3 Devil's Reverses and 3 sweeps, 3 dashes. So that's kind of the big thing that, like, I really want to talk in here, is just like, we've got to be really careful about this stuff. Like, it is imperative that, like, understanding patience and understanding kind of just the best thing that he could have done in that situation is just kind of played spacing and just kept clawing in, kept trying to keep that Bison pressure going, because that's really where Bison excels. So, that was our first, this is definitely our first replay of the night. If you guys will chat amongst yourselves for a second while I pull the second. Alrighty. So, we've got our second one here. I'm not sure not sure which one sent this in, but let's go ahead and take a look here.
Fight.
So one thing we're definitely seeing here is some really good spacing and really good control from the side player. So let's kind of talk about, I want to talk about some decisions made here. So let's go back. So like this stuff here where we're seeing like, so Ed's Psycho Upper is a DP, Colin's Rising Kick is a DP. Both of those moves are incredibly crush counterable, and, like, you can get lit up for them. Like, if, you know, just to kind of put this in terms, that's 2 Ryu DPs. Had this Colin been on point, that would have been stun. That could have been 2 stun opportunities. Like, that's just, we're seeing a little bit of recklessness here, and I think it's just coming from inexperience. So let's kind of keep going. So good anti-air. Finally seeing the rising kicks get brought up. I've seen some really good corner pressure from the side player here. Yep. Go for the low. So that first round, like, could have been real bad. Like, I was say, like, we had 2 or 3 whiff DPs, and none of those were crush counters. So that's definitely one thing, like, I would stress the Colin player here to take a look at, is just, like, that, you know, a lot of damage was left on the table, and, like, this Ed player ran rampant with incredibly unsafe moves. So let's go to the next round.
Fight.
So we see the dash in, and we see some space control from the Colin player, just kind of checking that. So let's take a look here. Whoa. This is definitely kind of one place where you want to be, where you want to be afraid of Colin, because once she's got corner control, like, your attempts to kind of poke your way out or push your way out can be met with a counter, which she has one of the best counters in the game. So one thing we saw there, we finally kind of saw one of those DPs get punished. Like, it was a throw, but, you know, we're finally seeing a little bit of damage on the board. Alright. So this round's definitely a little bit stronger from the Colin player. We're seeing the Colin player start some of the pressure. And one thing, like, I'm definitely seeing here is, like, I'm seeing our Ed player here get hit. I'm seeing a lot of damage. Like, so we got the anti-air, drop combo, and then so this set's kind of fast. There's a lot that happened, but this was a 2-minute scramble between both these players, and what we originally saw was, like, we saw a really strong first round from Sumo Sloth here, and then we saw the next 2 rounds just get eaten up because they didn't know how to deal with some of Colin's pressure. Like, the big takeaway here, especially for the Ed player, is just like, hey, listen, I like psycho uppers. I throw them a lot. They're cool, especially when you combo into them. I like the rising kicks because you can sit down and just, like, you can start a lot off of it. Ed starts a lot off of his DPs. But you've got to know how to use them. Because, like, in that first round, had that been someone who kind of knows what they're doing, like, you've gotten lit up for every single one of those. And, like, 2 of those, 2 crush counters is a quarter bar, or is a third of a bar of stun each time. So you can't throw that stuff out, especially when, like, especially just with the damage you're taking. Alright, so after that, so my next one here is from Sammy Burr. Sent in from us. Looks like this is a Karen player. So let's take a look here and see what we got going on. Alright. So I actually play Laura a little bit here, so I kind of want to at least break down, like, some stuff of this matchup that'll help some of these players out. Some of this stuff kind of retains pre-patch. So one thing we saw there, we saw standing medium kick into V-skill dash. That's fake. Just jab it, like, because if she gets in, she's going to command grab you or do lows. It's crazy. So we're seeing a lot of pressure strings here from this Laura player. There we go. Okay, so that was actually a pretty good turnaround. Like, I want to highlight some stuff here, though. So, we're going to take a look. Like, we're seeing a lot of V-reversal, seeing a lot of kind of just getting out of pressure. Like, this Laura is not wanting to play this game. So, one thing here, like, this Laura is kind of playing really risky with some of the stuff like that, just raw overhead. It worked in that situation, but, like, overhead has a lot of startup, and, like, if you can see it, don't hit buttons, just let it land, and then just go in. Just go for it. Like, do your damage. So let's start the second round here. Alright, good crush counter. Not a good follow-up, but definitely looks like that was just kind of a... Looks like that may not have been intended. So, we're kind of seeing a lot of really safe buttons. We're seeing kind of some space control from the Karen. Because that's the thing you have to do with Laura, is, like, you don't want her to get in, because then stuff like this happens. Like, that's a 50-50. You either guess wrong or you get command thrown. So now I've seen some really strong anti-air stuff here, but, you know... Karen's anti-airs are a little bit lacking. So the raw Mujin there was like not. It worked, but don't do that. All right. Ooh. So that was kind of a good response, especially for EX clap. Like you can kind of just run through it and not get lit up that way. You got to be a little bit careful in that situation. Like, there was a little bit of turnaround, and the Karen player here took some damage for that. But, so, there we go. Good anti-air, definitely got caught with a standing heavy punch, but there wasn't really any follow-up for that, so it was kind of nothing. Alright. Okay, so I kind of want to highlight this scramble here because there is a couple of mistakes. So, I kind of want to go highlight, because kind of where this set started to go downhill was right about here. Laura was kind of feeling herself a little bit. I really feel like this was a bit of a missed opportunity. There could have been a V-trigger pop there to extend that combo a little bit. Like, it just... An optimal combo would have won you that set. And that's... I hate that because you know... I went a little bit bad. Laura gets really scary when she... I was going to say Laura gets really scary when she gets V-gauge. But... in that situation, like, that was a really good set. You know, couple of optimizations, you could have won it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to my next one, which is another lore match sent in by our good friend Salt Inferno. Looks like Salt Inferno and Pace is playing. Let's take a look here and see what we got. So this matchup is really difficult for Laura. Guile can start booms. Guile can kind of run wild in this if he wants to. And that's what we're seeing right here. We're seeing Guile just control spacing, kind of keep his distance. So one thing definitely good there is like understanding the spacing there. Scout player got caught by the crouching forward, and that gives Laura the chance to go in. So one thing I want to highlight about this, especially for folk who don't understand the Laura matchup, this right here, dash ins after the command grab, it's fake. I may have passed it here, so we'll rewatch this for a second. There we go. Yeah. It's like this right here, fake. You can jab Laura out of it and light her up. So you see here, a little bit of pressure into that. That was a good EX. That was a good EX bolt. So I want to highlight this because it's kind of looks like a little bit panicky. See this elbow. That time you're predictable. Like he saw you do. So yeah, there's two big mistakes here. You were a little bit predictable with the dash in throw, which is why he jumped out. If he had done a neutral jump, you would have eaten full jumping combo. And then after that, just a raw V trigger pop. You know, this is especially season 2 Laura. Like she has better options than just throwing that out. It's so one thing here, like I want to highlight. This pressure string is kind of deceptive depending on how it's done. So this is standing medium punch, or should be, wait a second. There we go. So standing medium punch, crouching medium punch, clap. I want to like talk about that real quick because that's one of Laura's really good pressure strings, and she still has it going into. As I say, she still has it going into AE. What that does is like, as long as it's spaced correctly, it's safe. So you can do standing medium punch, crouching medium punch, and then if you do medium clap, that continues the pressure. If you do light clap, that puts it right in front of you and you can command grab. If you do heavy clap, heavy clap I traditionally throw out if I see them trying to hit buttons after it. The way heavy clap would work is it's technically a frame trap, so if they hit buttons, they're going to get clipped by it. But anyway. So, that was good. We want to be really careful with Giles in Wake Up because he does have an EX reversal and he can light you up for it. So, start a second round. Yeah, there we go. So, the important thing about like Laura's EX command grab, especially if you're trying to zone her, if she's within a certain range and she has meter, she can and will go through your fireball. That also works for supers too. I've had Urians throw up Aegis Reflectors that I've done EX command grab through. I've had Ryu players try to do raw Dingens to do guard break. Like, if it's a projectile, she can go through it, and you go and get scooped. So one thing I'll definitely note here is like there's a lot of predictability. Like anytime that knockdown has happened, we've seen the dash up throw to the point to where Paces knows it's coming. Like one thing I'm definitely seeing from Paces, like the range at when he's starting to throw booms versus when he's starting to use some of Guile's pressure tools is a little bit questionable. Like we've seen these really close booms that he's got lit down before, but with EX bolts and with EX command grabs.
Laura wins.
Alright, so let's go ahead and head in the next set here. Gonna fast forward just a little. So I'm looking at the chat. So, like, one thing to understand is, like, predictability kind of once you understand it a little bit, like once you kind of have an idea of your options and how to handle matchups, like you grow out of it. Alright. So this is kind of the situation where it's absolutely okay to hammer Laura with sonic booms. Like we're booms a plus on block. You know, Salt doesn't have meter to kind of get out of it, so we're just seeing a lot of pressure and like we're seeing a lot of chip. We've already seen like, you know, about an eighth of a life loss just through chip, just through sonic boom chip. There it is. There's that dash up command grab that could have been checked with a jab. And now's the point where it's dangerous to throw booms. Laura's got meter, throw it, and she knows you're gonna throw it because you're being predictable. She's gonna go right through it. So I'm personally not very fond of the raw V trigger pop there, but it worked. You know, like especially during season 2, Laura had a lot of things that she could do to cancel into it and start some really disgusting pressure. Alright. So we're seeing Paces start the boom pressure again. Now we're seeing Salt work his way in. You know, try not to rely on meter. He's got a whole lot. So the rough thing about that's fake too. You can get jabbed out of that, no problem. That was an EX reversal that could have gotten Salt lit up. So one thing I'm definitely not seeing is like definitely a lack of anti-airs, especially from the range that these two are at. Standing medium punch is a wonderful tool, and it's a tool that only got better in season 2. So, there it is again, throwing booms when Laura has meter, like especially from that range. Like, so there's just a lot of jumps here that we're seeing. Like, a heavy bolt could have shut down any of them. And that's all she wrote. So, like, definitely kind of takeaways from the set. Salt be a little bit less predictable with kind of the way you ran things. Paces be a little bit smarter about your booms. So we're gonna move into our last set for the night, sent to me by Ryex Vortex. These are actually AE sets. I'm pretty excited about this. So we're gonna watch like 2 of these and kind of, whoops, that wasn't it. Part 1. Alright, so let's kind of take a look. A little bit of a lead up in this. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here. Alrighty. Alright. There we go. Cool.
Uh-oh. Pleased to meet you.
Round 1. Fight.
So, naturally, soccer has been out for less than a week, so don't have a whole lot to comment on that, but I can comment on some bad habits. So, let's look at the opening. I just want to take a look at, like, just the way this starts, because there's some things to be said.
Pleased to meet you.
Round 1. Fight.
So that's 1 unchecked jump in. 2 unchecked jump ins. Second one was a little less, you know, a little more understandable because he's Meta Hadouken, but 3. So, Sakura, her V-Trigger DP is the only one that's crush counterable, but at that point you can still get any of Ryu's damaging B&Bs, because that was a free standing medium punch, crushing heavy punch, DP, whatever. So, big takeaway I'm seeing right here is just like, there's a lot of jumps, I'm seeing a lot of this kind of check pressure. Good attempt at a meaty there. Raw DP, I'll say, a little bit questionable.
I did it.
Round 2.
Anyway,
Fight.
so on to round 2. Immediate start with a jump in, and that's especially from a range where you could have clipped them with crouching heavy punch. Ryu's crouching heavy punch is one of his best ways to kind of shut down jumps from that range. Naturally, you want to be able to do DPs, but that takes time. That's a skill. It's kind of hard. So we're seeing some really good corner pressure up into a raw DP that you didn't really get the check that badly for. Could have been a lot worse. So I'm seeing a lot of DPs. What I'm assuming is I'm betting that these are... If I'm wanting to say these are input errors. It's really easy to kind of just let those loose from that, especially for mashing buttons. So we saw that activation, didn't really kind of see any setup start off of it, especially because Ryu can charge his Hadouken up. So that was a good little bit of a turnaround. Definitely kind of some pressure. A little too many jump-ins, especially on two characters who do have really good anti-airs. Let's take this into the final round. So I'm just seeing kind of a lot of really bad shadow habits. We're seeing a lot of jump-ins just because of damage. We're seeing a lot of raw specials that aren't spaced well. Like, it's just, there's a little bit of recklessness here. So the big thing to like kind of be notice here is like those are unchecked dash-ins. Like you can say you can stand a medium punch, you can stand a medium kick, you can just jab those out. Like those aren't like check. Make sure, especially like if you see someone dash, check it. I understand Sakura has a bit of a throw loop, but even then. So we're gonna go to the next part of that set. Get this out of here. Good chunk of that is filler. Kind of skip ahead here. Let's check round 2.
Round 1. Fight.
Seeing a lot less jump-ins here. See a fully charged fireball, especially in that situation. Doing a Tatsu through that may have been the best idea, especially since your DP. We saw your Hadouken kind of just get eaten by that. So we're seeing more dashes here, kind of more just. Make sure you're checking those because they're not free. Like you can shut folks down. So all these jump ins are, as I said, could have been taken care of. So this is the, as I say, that's the DP that Sakura has that is crush counterable. And then another dash in, could checked it, got thrown.
Whew. That was a bit close.
Round 2.
Let's go into this final round.
Fight.
Sorry.
There we go. That was it. Started off well. So, starting to see a lot of these jump-ins kind of get shut down with air-to-airs, which is definitely good. You do have some better options now. Instead of jumping, instead of trying to counter those with jumping light kick, get in there and do jumping medium punch. You'll get 2 hits off of it, and there are follow-ups to it. It's reused best under air. That was impressive. Good job finding the break in the string to shoot that Hadouken, or the Denjin.
Final round. Fight.
So we see there again, fully charged Hadouken from Sakura, and just kind of try to counter it with normal Hadouken. Hadouken gets stuffed. There we go, that's a good DP. So, Rye, you're a little too eager to kind of jump in, and it just got you put in the corner there. Don't intentionally corner yourself if you don't have to. Like, it's not the place you want to be. Especially, like, both of these characters have really good normals, really good poking tools. Like, the corner is a place where you'll get picked to death, and it's just not something you want to mess around with. So again, we're seeing a lot of jumps there. Good checks on those.
Wins.
But outside of that, you got clipped with a lot of dashes. You started to handle the jump ins. There's a lot of basic habits that can kind of be talked about, and just kind of some general needs to be some tidiness, some cleaning up. But outside of that, we saw a little bit of adaptation. You did attempt to start. You weren't confident in your anti-air, so you went air to air, and it worked out for you most of the time. Anyway, though, that's the end of tonight's session. It's just me this week. This is a little bit of a ramshackle production. I have guests lined up for the next 3 weeks, at least until Kizza gets back. But thank y'all for showing up, and thank y'all for kind of just letting this rock. If you guys have replays to send in to us, feel free to send those in. It is nch.beginner.breakdowns@gmail.com. We are always taking those. You can DM them to me. You can DM them to Kizza. But feel free to send those in. Outside of that, we appreciate y'all. Have a good night.